everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I'm here today with a flip through of one of my latest journals. This is another death and mourning inspired journal, inspired by the original book. And so this is The Way to Dusty Death. That is the original book spine that I've added now onto a larger fabric spine with a bit of a grungy feel to it. So on the cover of this book, we have an actual locket with a Victorian image inside. This was from an estate auction, and I've embedded it into the cover of the book. If you're interested in how to embed a frame into the cover of a book, I do have a video on that. If you just go to my channel and look up embed frame in book cover. On the back, we have Thy Will Be Done, and this is stitched onto the book as well, and gilded, and it's just a fun little sort of way of saying, you know, goodbye to the end of the book. There are brass eyelets holding this book closed. This is a chunky book. It has 6 signatures, and it is vintage seam binding that ties it closed. It's that nice kind of thin, shiny seam binding. It's very lovely. So we open the book on up, and this is the paper that I've used for the cover, the inside covers. So I didn't add any pockets or anything. I just kept it simple because these books are very stuffed full, and I just wanted to have it be balanced. So that being said, we start with the original page of the book, The Way to Dusty Death, and the pocket is made from a 1920s scrapbook. There are some lilies here. And then this is a little journal card that says, "And if thou wilt remember, and if thou wilt forget." And it has one of those Victorian greeting card kind of images on it. So back here we have the 1973 copyright of the book. This is some of my dyed paper that I made specifically for the Death and Mourning series. It's kind of a like a silvery gray and bits of bronzy brown marbling. And this is one of our Victorian mourning illustrations on some lace paper. And this is a Victorian mourning photograph of a family mourning this gentleman. I will link below a video that I found very inspiring for creating this series from Ask a Mortician, and she talks about the history of, you know, the mourning, the movement in mourning, and how you know, a lot of things sort of changed throughout time. It's a very cool video. So this is a little snippet of these 2 eyes. These were commonly used in mourning images, either of 1 eye or 2 eyes, kind of like the eyes being a window to the soul. This is some lovely coffee dyed paper. This is some nice black and white floral paper. On back I've clipped on with a little heart paper clip here. This is a mourning image. This is, you'll see throughout the series, I've done a whole bunch of these pages. These are gravestone rubbings that I've done in crayon. It's an activity that I do actually with my children when we're going on our walks in graveyards. And this is a pocket up here, and this is a journal card with all of these skulls. This is an original advertisement for mortuary wreaths. It's in an Art Nouveau style. It's a Parisian advertisement. This is some of my digital eco-printed paper with oak leaves. This is a journal tag that I made of one of the first pages of the book for The Way to Dusty Death, and added a funerary greeting hand there, and there is paper from a grave rubbing on back. And this is a little girl in a mourning image who is sort of playing with some funeral flowers. More of that digital. And then this is from a gravestone. It's a tree, a weeping willow, which is another symbol that came around in about the 1790s with the change from kind of everything being puritanical to Catholicism, moving into Europe. This is a piece of vellum that I've printed with this this gravestone. This was another, I'd say, more modern depiction of gravestone death. Eventually, like the Puritans sort of believed that, you know, that you shouldn't worship any kind of icons of any kind of religious statues. And what happened was they believed a lot in kind of the concept of memento mori, where you would you would reflect on death as a more scary thing. That's why you would see a lot of skulls on old gravestones. When Puritanism moved into America and sort of King Charles drove it, well, didn't drive it, but they left Europe because of King Charles and his dislike for the Puritan religion. That's when things kind of changed, and sort of the first movement of death positivity came along, and you saw those skulls start to change from being a skull with wings on a gravestone to a cherub, something cuter. And that's when we started to see these kind of women that were like these gentle figures who would guide you to death, right? Who would guide you to the ever after. So that's just a little bit, but as I mentioned, you can just hear so much interesting stuff on this topic from Ask a Mortician's video, which I will link. So this is an original piece of ephemera. It says Fair Days to You, and it comes out of a 1920s scrapbook. This is very much like the kind of cards that people used to send in the 1800s to someone who had just lost someone. So this is more of the botanical digital, and then this is a licensed embalmer furniture store card. It's really strange. This is a death card for Susan Macaulay, November 13th, 1897, a funeral card. More of that digital paper. This is a gravestone. What I liked about it was the Dreamless Sleep, 1865 to 1910. It's on a funeral stone rubbing, and it has a Victorian mourning image inside. And then on this side we have another gravestone rubbing, and this is an undertaking company check. Here we have a verse. I am winter that to keep, longing safe amidst of sleep. Who shall say if I were dead, what should be remembered? And then this is a little funeral pocket, or sorry, not funeral, cemetery pocket. And then this is the furniture, carpeting, and bedding, also coffins and robes. And it's a digital image, a digital copy with that old tape and kind of an invoice. It's just a lot of fun, some extra journaling. Some coffee dyed paper and stenciling. This side we have another authentic piece of ephemera with living thoughts is what it says, and it has these beautiful botanicals on some lacy paper. And then this is Mrs. Nina Moore Jameson Penn's Feeney to Public, Triumphant Lines of Dying Writer published today. So this is sort of like her last, words in the newspaper, this author. And she ends it with Feeney. So this is more of my dyed paper. This is another of the first pages of the book, The Way to Dusty Death. Second signature now. This is a cutout from that old scrapbook that I've been working with lately from the 1920s, originally the 1850s. And there were a couple of pages that were about funerals, mourning, remembrance. And so this was one of them. And these are all original pieces. This is an original mourning card that has sort of the angel and the two cherubs. And down here, this says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He restoreth my soul. These little things were like, they were sort of church stamps that would be put on the letters that were sent from church members to someone who was dealing with a death. Often funerals would take place at the church. Often there would be a cemetery at the church. So those are what those are. And this is a little newspaper snippet of Ireland's Blarney stone, popular. Here's Ireland's famous Blarney stone, showing a visitor leaning over to kiss the famous stone that is supposed to bring good health. Only recently, a youth who had attempted to kiss the stone without being held by the guard fell 150 feet down the hole to his death. But that has in no way impaired the popularity of Blarney. So just a little bit of history there, little dark history of the Blarney stone. This is another stone rubbing. You can see here, dyed. Like I did partial kind of rubbings. I thought it would be more like a nice, you can write on that. It's more of a background. This is just a fun piece of paper with this little, you know, knot here tied. This is a card that says in loving memory, and this is a digital of a Victorian mourning image. Some of them got, like, as the photography movement of the Victorians kind of progressed, it took many different paths in the world of kind of morbidity. Some were extremely morbid, like actual death photography. I've not included any of that here. Because it's just, I think it's a little beyond the subject matter that I want to portray at this time. So, but there was other stuff that they did, like spirit photography, more strange or, you know, elusive kind of photography, like kind of like those fun photos they would take where the mother would drape herself with like, you know, a black cloth and hold on to her baby who is alive, you know, but that was like the best way to get a picture of just a baby and to try to keep it still for the picture, right? So, you know, it was interesting because at this time they were also discovering photography and how to depict imagery. And I just think that a lot of it's really fascinating. And I've included, it's either in this book or one of the others that I'll show you. I have another one after this on this same topic where a little bit of humor comes into death photography. So anyways, this is a beautiful tree digital that says one touch of nature makes the whole world kin by William Shakespeare. And then some grungy kind of ledger on back and some dyed paper. This is a dissolved National Geographic. This is a little folded envelope, and in here we have the eyes again. This is very grungy. It's been eco-printed. This is a little card. The spades, these are mourning images on little cards. I've used a few of them throughout. And this is just a very ghostly image from that original scrapbook from the 1920s. This is a linoleum print. This is just a nice piece of paper. This is a coffee dyed sort of ledger page. These images were often used to depict mourners as well. They're the more traditional Victorian images. They were used for all different kinds of holidays. People would illustrate these kind of women. Funeral record and ledger. That's a little scanned cover of an old funeral ledger. This is a coffee dyed doily. Just some beautiful florals and mushrooms. This card is Sudden Mourning. This was a mourning warehouse called Jay's, and there's a lot of public domain imagery on this particular business. This was like a huge warehouse that sold, like, you know, mourning wear, everything from, like, you know, hair pieces and head pieces to like the full dresses, as well as the furniture that would be inside the mortuaries, you know, gravestones. They sold the deeds to the land. Like, it was just an everything mourning related warehouse, which is an interesting concept. This is a winter image. This is the same woman that you saw on the vellum a little bit ago. This is a beautiful gravestone, and that just tucks in there. This side we have, this is a belly band on eco-printed paper that talks about vision of paradise, nirvana, satori, dualism, eschatology, aura, ectoplasm, telekinesis, and telepathy. There's lots of thoughts on life and death. And then this is an original image from the 1920 scrapbook in loving memory of His Majesty King George V. And that just pops in there. Another of the National Geographic pages, more dyed paper, botanical ledger, Amawalk, New York. It talks about the red oak, just some tree legend here. Because trees are a very important and big part of graveyards. In case you haven't wandered through one, they're a wonderful place to look at trees. This is another of the rubbings. This is from the original scrapbook, this little floral bit here, and more on the rubbing. And then this is a journal card with another of those beautiful statues. Just some nice floral paper. Another page from the scrapbook with another of those little stamps, and this is the Goat Island Bridge. It's a little cigarette card. And this is from National Casket Co. It's an advertisement about a casket under our canopy of protection. So, you know, a little bit of interesting lore about like caskets, right? So, you know, when people were getting very sick from things like the plague, at the time science was a little more amateur and they believed in what they called miasma. Some gravestones there, some onion skin paper. And they believed that basically it was the smells and the air that was making people sick. It was the smell. And they often thought it was because of bodies that were buried. So as they were coming up with the cremation movement, a lot of people were sick. And the idea is, like, especially in New York, the death rate was so high that the miasma was getting worse and worse. So it started to become popular to look at different ways to bury the dead. And that's when they started to look at what caskets, how they should be put together. They should be like, you know, sealed and airproof, airtight, watertight, so that the miasma couldn't escape. So that's when the cremation movement started and that sort of thing. But yeah, just a little bit of interesting history. And also, it wasn't miasma. It was rats. So this is an old page of the original scrapbook. You can see back here 1859 and a little bit of a ledger entry, 25 bags of peas. But on front we have this image, Hope, by Sir Edward Burne-Jones. And it's just a beautiful, like, of a woman kind of reaching up for hope. And then I stitched together and added 3 of these images of the eyes here. So it's just like a journaling card with a little bit of fun interest. And then paper clipped to the back of this botanical paper is another beautiful cemetery angel. And then another of those little church stamp cards on more National Geographic. This is a really fun gravestone rubbing on pink paper, and hopefully you can see it on camera. It might be a little hard, but the name was Withers, and I liked that. And then there's 2 birds here. They're doves with little sprigs in their mouth. I'm trying to recall the plant that's often depicted for mourning in the dove's mouth. I can't remember. It's a sprig of something, and I forget right now. A pocket here, and this says, "Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality." From Emily Dickinson, "Because I could not stop for death." This is a little funeral card in memory of Charles Albert Thacker from 1869. Some lace digital paper. This is some of my botanically printed paper. And I've just branded on this little frame with some eco-printed fabric. Some William Morris, and I was reading a William Morris book as I was putting this journal together, and he actually did a lot of design that was targeted toward mourning funeral homes. Like he did the wallpaper, he did several designs for furniture. Yeah, he was really cool. This is a piece of vellum from a beautiful gravestone. This is of one of those, you know, typical kind of women, but then this is like almost like a shell with another face in it that she's holding in her hand. More of the William Morris, and clipped on here we have a Western Union slip. "Sorry to hear of Clyde's death. Our prayers are with you. Much love, Mrs. Kirby and Georgina." That's a digital image. And on back, lace paper. It's a scan of an original document. And this is more of the gravestone rubbing. Here as well. Early 1900s, so 1905 to 2001. This is another of the National Geographic pages. A cemetery pocket on botanical paper, and this little cabinet card, "The Angel of Peace in Loving Remembrance," Winifred Pearl Hoffman, 1907 to 1908. Onion skin paper, dyed paper, and this is Anna Pavlova. This is from a rose book. It has all the information about the rose on the back. This is an original piece of ephemera. It says, "Walk while ye have light. well, you have the light. It's John 12:35. So I thought it was an interesting pairing with this image. So this is what I was talking about the humor that the Victorians who were photographing, all sorts of things, but death and mourning being a big topic. This is where eventually they kind of started to have fun and bring a little bit of positivity and light into things with camera experiments and stuff. So they started to learn how to create these kinds of images. So, they would create two images, one of a woman standing with her hands like this and one of another woman sitting. And then they would crop, out in the earliest days of Photoshop through how they would process the photography, like in a darkroom kind of setting, I guess would be what we would refer to maybe. They would modify the images. So it was kind of fun, and I thought this was showing how you can walk while you still have light, right? You can live life in a positive and fun way while you can, right? And then just some sparkly paper. This is a card here with this beautiful floral and ribbon, and it has this death head's moth on the front and some stationery that tucks inside. It's actually a pocket. You can see from the back here, this comes out, and I've added some paper here for writing. This is a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem. He's one of my favorite, as I call him, sad poets. So turn of the century, 1800s poetry, and this is a poem about grieving. This is botanically dyed paper. A little cemetery pocket on some digital botanical paper. This is a list of deaths. Basically, people would keep these kind of old books in Victorian times, and they were, very beautiful, and they would write down all the details of that nature. Clipped up here, this little coin envelope, and we have some symbology of death, and inside we have this skull, a little journal card, and that just clips up here. Some dyed paper, another gravestone rubbing. And this here, so if you see how I fold it, it says who died. And then on the inside we have more botanicals and mushrooms. And this is a little tuck spot of a mourning family. And this is a journal card. Again, something I was fascinated by. So often when people would write their mourning messages, like the memories that they have of someone that they've lost, this was called cross writing. So they would literally write, across the page and then across the page again, creating crosses. So that goes in there. Little death's head moth, all this botanical paper. I felt very drawn to using botanical paper in this journal because I create most of my botanically dyed, eco-printed, or boiled books from funeral flower compost that I am permitted to take from our local graveyard. This is some of the old ledger from that 1920s scrapbook, 1855 ledger. This is an image of a tree, and there's a verse up here, earth, sweet landscape with leaves throng, and lodged low grass, heaven that dost appeal to, with no tongue to plead, no heart to feel, that canst but only be, but dost that long. Lots of mourning poetry. This is an image from the old scrapbook of this lady, and I've added this up here, another of those Victorian funeral greetings. This is an old image in the 1800s of a gravedigger. More old ledger, and this is kind of some book spine collage with a clock, which I think is also a very symbolic thing to life and death. Some trees here. More botanical paper, and this is a beautiful book plate from this vintage book on beetles that I got. Just wanted to add that there, and on back it talks about the family Lucinidae, and that's the family that this beetle is from. And beetles are actually an important part of a lot of bone preservation in museums. They are the best way to preserve bones. So this is a page that has been eco-printed and has this fun hole in it that if you look through, you see this lady here. This is a Tim Holtz image, and these women are actually wearing mourning clothing, and some botanical paper. This is a little postcard here. On back, it talks about Mr. Frost having died this morning. This is a check from the John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance relating to a funeral, and this says, "Things that were never born are seeking death, and the things that died long ago are seeking life." Akshay Vasu. Some coffee-dyed paper. Another of those little church stamps. More of the gravestone rubbing with botanical imagery. This is from the original scrapbook. This is mourning for families. This is from that warehouse, the Mourning Warehouse, Jay's. And then just some beautiful butterflies here. Another of those eye images and gravestone rubbings. Little photograph of flowers. More dyed and botanical paper. A little bird skull here, and this card says, "When nights are dark and the moon is new," and we have a very mossy green graveyard there. And botanical digital paper from my dyeing, and then some of my eco-printed fabric. This is a vintage linen. This is a really lovely verse about trees, and then there's maple seeds here on the back. This tips out, and we have more botanicals here. And we have another little mourning poem down here. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim in roundy wells, stones ting like each tucked string tells, each hung bells. Bough swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells, sells, goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. And then more tree bark paper with a cemetery image pocket with an undertaker's cabinet, journal card, and on to the last signature now. This is from a book, an old book, Common Sense About Wills, and we have a pocket with some fabric here, and inside this is a Release the Crafton tag, and then another of those little spade mourning images. This is from Release the Crafton as well, and it is on this lace digital paper, another big journal card. This is from the original scrapbook, and this gentleman has kind of been torn away, and I really liked that symbolically. It's on William Morris paper, and we have this. This is from a flower press book of Snowdrop. More botanical paper, a little pocket with a butterfly, and then it has, this is from Release the Crafton, and this is some spirit photography. This is from a Chinese English dictionary, and here it says, it gives you the words: to pass away, die, homeward journey, one's way home, turn towards the righteous side, incline. This is a little remembrance image here of this person who passed away, and some thistles, as are often depicted on Scottish gravestones. This is some poetry from a book, Life is Forever, Death is a Dream. A pocket here with another of those eye images and a Release the Crafton tag. And then just some sort of old family photo paper. And this is a poem from an old book called The Wanderer. It talks about death. This is a little memento mori style card on some botanical digital paper, and this is a tag that I made with William Morris paper, and the eyes that I've gilded. It says, "There let her stay. I know not if my theme be love or some fair child of heart or mind. Young friendships, hopes, beliefs, which like a dream pass from us, leaving some sweet ghost behind. Leave them behind, they have been, others are and shall be. Lo, the springtime is not far." botanical paper, William Morris pocket, and another of those beautiful botanical images with the information on the back on a gravestone rubbing page. And this is a whole gravestone rubbing. So you see it's from a poem. The soul of, is an embryo, body of man. Of death is the awakening that lives on. So yeah, pretty interesting gravestones out there. This is a little pocket here of an old church, and inside we have a memento mori image. Stationery to write on. More botanical paper. This is a little journal card that has a poem on it about sort of like dreams and how they intersect with life and death. And another of those old photograph pages. Death is a doorway. It's a little pocket there, and we have this journal card inside of a mourning image. And clipped here we have another mourning image on this digital page. More dried paper. And this is an undertaker burial casket. Again, this is Fisk's patent metallic burial cases. So see the coffins were getting more elaborate. And another memento mori image. This is a poem called Still Waters, also about death. This is some lace, belly band. This is just a piece of stationery that's black from this book called The Mysteries of Life and Death. This clipped onto this last page here is a bunch of mourning rings images. So it's a big piece of stationery that you could write on. So it opens on up here, and these are different designs of mourning rings. And then that just pops on here with a rusty paper clip. And we reach the end. So that is The Way to Dusty Death. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this book. I will be sharing one more on this same topic a little bit later today, hopefully, or if not tomorrow. But thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.